I think you and I have had this conversation before, actually, mate. I've on my desk, above my computer, I've got the four words: choice, challenge, connection, and curiosity, and they form the part. They if at least two of them have got to be in every PE lesson for me. I really thought hard about this, mate, and I'll be honest with you, the only mantra that I've ever sort of lived by, and it's got nothing to do with teaching, is if you're going to miss the bus, you've got to miss it running.
Today's episode is sponsored by Sports Directory, your partner in PE. Is your PE budget feeling the squeeze? Struggling to find the right equipment to help your students thrive? Sports Directory has you covered. Whether you're restocking your PE cupboard, planning the perfect sports day, or looking to bring new activities into your curriculum, Sports Directory is there to support you. Plus, with their My School Rewards scheme, you'll get 10% back on every order, ready to spend on your next purchase. Visit sportsdirectory.com for all the equipment you need to boost your PE lessons and see how My School Rewards can help your budget go further. Yes, hello everyone. Welcome back to the PE Insights podcast. It's conversations about PE with me, your host Nathan, brought to you by the fantastic team at PE Scholar. I hope you're all well. I released this episode on the week of the UK's National Thank a Teacher Day, and I'd like to take this opportunity to give a shout out to every single teacher for the endless hard work and selflessness that you give in striving to improve the lives of the young children. Sincerely, thank you. So let's talk about today's episode. In this conversation, I catch up with the brilliant Ben Shields, and we discuss all things PE. We discuss international perspectives, curriculum design, and our shared values of the 4 C's, which we'll talk about later. And in the episode, we make reference to the PYP curriculum, and if you're sat there wondering what this is, I've put a link in the show notes for you to take a look at. We discuss how HP has the potential to reduce movement time in physical education. What would your thoughts be on this? I'd love to hear them, so if you'd like to leave a comment on social media, that would be really appreciated because it's about creating a conversation and further discussion. That said, and as always, grab a drink, a notepad, sit back, relax, or keep moving, and let's dive in. Ben, welcome to the PE Insights podcast.
Thank you, mate. It's a pleasure to be on. It's, as we said just before, it's been a while coming. We've been bouncing around trying to get dates and things in the diaries. So glad we locked it in, mate. But and also I thank you. I don't know how often you get this, but I thank you from me on behalf of other PE practitioners and people who listen to the pod, mate. I think if only this kind of pod, I know there's been some other pods around, but I think if only sort of more people were doing something like this, and I think any time that people listen to your pod, there's always some good ideas that are taken away. So it definitely soothes my commute to work on at least once or twice a week, I know.
Oh, mate, what a way to start. Thanks, Ben. I genuinely appreciate it. I haven't paid you to say that either, so that means a lot. And, trying to organise a podcast with someone who lives on the other side of the world is always difficult. And it is 7:30 in the evening over in Brisbane. So thanks for dedicating the time to come on, mate. And I genuinely appreciate the kind words. So let's start. We always start this way, as you'll be familiar with, and tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your educational journey to this point.
Yeah, sure. I'll do the short version because we could be here all night otherwise. But long story short, love school, love PE. So as most PE teachers, went on to do a sport education degree, kind of sort of was really idolizing my PE teachers at school. Went on to do sport education. After my 3-year degree, wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do in life. So did the cliche backpacking, traveling around the world, sort of seeing what was out there. Came back again, wasn't quite sure. So knew I wanted to be in education, and it was building up to the time of the 2012 Olympics. So I was sort of looking at, sport, primary, secondary. So anyway, got a job as a primary classroom TA, teaching assistant. Did that for a year, and then during that process, very quickly realised that's where I wanted to be. So I did my graduate teacher program, GTP, and at the school I was in, they paid me as an unqualified teacher salary, learn on the job. So actually was a classroom teacher and sort of learnt my trade that way. Did that for a couple of years, but then soon realised that sort of PE was, I was seeing other PE lessons happening, and I was realising, that is where I wanted to be. Then actually chased a girl down under, went to Australia for a year and did a little bit of PE teaching there for just a year because of the visa situation. Then went back to London, worked in a couple of state schools, couple of private schools. Then got a bit of an itchy feet again, sort of the travel bug, and sort of started chasing the expat life. Did a bit of research of schools and locations, and then landed very luckily at a great school in Abu Dhabi, in the UAE, Cranley, Abu Dhabi, where I was head of pre-prep PE, so nursery to year 2. I was there for 3 great years. Worked with some fantastic colleagues. Did some great stuff. Some good opportunity in life for travel, and then my wife at that point was getting a little bit itchy feet. She's an Aussie, and she was sort of wanting to be a little bit closer to home. So we ended up moving a little bit more easterly to Bangkok in Thailand, and was head of primary PE and sport at Harrow Bangkok for a couple of years. I probably would have loved to have stayed a bit longer there, but life happens, and as I said, my wife was quite keen to get back to Australia.
Yeah,
and yeah, here we are. So I'm now at a P to 12 school, but I'm head of primary PE, sport, and co-curricular activities at St. Peter's, which is a co-ed school here in sunny Brisbane.
and that's where you are now. So you've followed a kind of similar journey to myself, and we've talked about this previously in our conversations we've had around the sort of international school circuit and kind of moving from the Middle East to Southeast Asia and then to Australia. How has that journey shaped your vision of physical education? What does PE mean to you as a subject, and how your experiences kind of shaped that?
Yeah, gosh, my answer to this question has probably changed in every single context I've been in. I think if you'd asked me when I first started as a PE trainee working at a state school in London, it was probably PE is blocks of sport taught for 6 to 7 weeks. And I'll hold my hands up. And that was what it was. I thought that's what the kids needed. Going full circle to where I am now, I'm of the belief that PE is a much more of a holistic, meaningful, purposeful experience for students. And then in between, it's always been adapted to the students that are in front of me, really. So, for example, at Cranley, PE was our curriculum was a very thematic, cross-curricular approach. So PE for the students in that context was thematic. It was chasing balls in space. It was tagging astronauts. It was stealing treasure from pirates. And it was and the kids loved it because it was storytelling. It was play based. At Harrow Bangkok, we went down a slightly different route, sort of moving from sport to concepts, which was really interesting. But yeah, PE has adapted for me in every context I've been in, because I'm delivering PE to the students, and that sort of I'm servicing them to a certain extent, and I'm sort of making sure that the curriculum is what they need it to be. So I don't really have a sort of definitive definition, really. It's just for sort of I'd like to think that I've been quite adaptable in helping shape and remove my ego from what I think PE is for what the students need as well.
I love that. And you're currently in a school in Brisbane at St. Peter's Lutheran College, but the subject is different as well, isn't it? Because it's health and physical education. So just for maybe listeners that are in the UK, how would you describe what sort of HPE looks like in Australia?
Yeah, it's I'm still getting my head around it now, Nathan, to be honest with you. I've just, for a bit of context, I've only been here 2 years now, and I've been in my role for 18 months. So I'm still figuring things out. But essentially, PE is called HPE in Australia. It's health and physical education. So there is a bit of a sort of more of a theory associated with PE here. Essentially, for international and British listeners, it's essentially what we would normally know as PSHE, so sort of personal, social, health. What's the E stand for? Is it emotions? Education. I hate you know that.
Yeah.
PSHE. And essentially, it's that sort of merged in with the movement and the physical activity component of PE. So, for example, in year 5 and 6 within our health curriculum. We're looking at emotional regulation. We're looking at nutrition. We're looking at being safe online, technology. We're looking at some puberty concepts, gender stereotypes. So there's a lot of extra things to cram in if we already thought the PE curriculum was quite tight on time. So it's proving quite difficult as we go through sort of a curriculum design process at the moment. And time is always tight, and we fully appreciate that we can't do everything. So yeah, it's a bit of a learning curve, and we're not going to get everything right straight away. But I've got a great team, and we're all sort of trying to sort of trial and error with different units. And it's also worth noting that we're a PYP school as well, so there's good opportunities to link in with class teachers and do some meaningful cross-curricular, essentially, sort of topics as well.
Yeah. So I guess is it taken away from all that classroom-based or theory-based stuff? Does that taken away from the time you get movement opportunities for the children?
Yeah.
Is it so that their PEs that's timetabled, right?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. So for example, I teach all year 5 and 6 lessons, and a lot of my colleagues teach P to 4, but year 5 will get 1 75-minute lesson a week with me. And how I use those 75 minutes, it's essentially up to me. Now, of course, being the PE practitioner I am, I want students to be moving and active for as much for that time as possible. But it's hard because we've got a CARA, which is the Australian curriculum, sort of telling us we've got to deliver this and this. So me being me, I'm always looking at creative ways that we can deliver some of the health components. So just to give you an example, year 5 are looking at zones of regulation, so emotional regulation. So we've got 4 zones: blue, red, green, yellow. Learning sort of, okay, if I'm bored, then I'm probably in the blue zone, a bit sad. If I'm in the red, I'm overjoyed or ecstatic. And then sort of learning about the body signals and the behavior and the science in those zones. But so rather than deliver that in a classroom, we've been doing a sort of a 15-minute, 20-minute input in the classroom, and then going out onto the oval and then applying that in sort of an ultimate frisbee sort of medium, if you will. So ultimate frisbee is a skills sort of byproduct, I suppose, but the real focus is looking at our emotional regulation when we're playing winning and losing games, and how we deal with that. So we're trying things, and we're sort of dipping our toe. As I said, we're not going to get it right, but yeah, that's how we're going. That's the way that I'm trying to go, because I don't want PE. And I remember one of the first things the kid said to me when we were sat in the classroom: "Why, this isn't PE? Why are we learning this?" And it's a hard sell to get the students on board with it, but hopefully for them to see the theory into the practical application will be telling. We'll see.
It's quite interesting you say that, because there appears to be, I think, a lot of similarity there with what some people, rightly or wrongly, might describe as a concept approach to PE. That's up for interpretation, but because you talked about emotional regulation being the maybe concept in this example, but you're teaching it through movement. So there's maybe a lot of similarities there that kind of maybe some schools around the world are trying to achieve with their PE lessons, where movement is fore and center, but that's more conceptual in the objective or the outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some really nice concepts that lend themselves well. However, there's some others, like probably nutrition, online safety, probably a little bit harder to try and link in as a concept that unfortunately they're going to probably be a bit more of a classroom session, or try and link on the class teacher and try and be creative with the curriculum. But I it's worth noting that as we go through this curriculum design process, we're not looking to we're looking to be as creative as possible, and we're sort of looking to give diversity as well. So I wouldn't say that we've got any cliche activity or sports within the curriculum. Within our HB, we're looking at life-saving, water polo, orienteering, chook ball, parkour, ultimate frisbee, orienteering. So we're historically, PE at my school was very much, we did basketball, football, and the PE curriculum was supporting and informing the sport the sports outside of school and all the
Yeah.
different sports and carnivals, and that's just not how it should work, in my opinion. So yeah, we're trying to add some breadth and depth, sort of the old battle of breadth v depth. But yeah, we're just trying to make sure that students can see and have different opportunities across the curriculum, and try something new as well, and almost have that springboard into something they might want to pursue outside of school as well.
And how do you go about choosing those activities? Is that ideas from you and your team? Is it driven or created by the learners themselves, or?
It's an amalgamation of a lot of things, Nathan. I think we, being a PYP school, we do lean on student voice as much as possible. Although many P teachers will know, it's the battle with facilities. It's the battle with, particularly in my school, although our senior HP department are wonderful, the senior school is far bigger than the primary school, so we're sort of constantly getting pigeonholed into that tiny corner of the oval and not getting any access into the gym, or which can be challenging in Australia in some pretty spicy weather conditions.
Can you just for listeners describe the oval, because I'm picturing my English cricket head on that, like this massive cricket wicket here. But
I'm starting to pick up a lot of Australian twangs and phrases, mate, so I do apologise. But an oval is essentially your field. It's a pitch.
Is it? Yeah, I like it.
We're very lucky at our school. We've got 3 ovals, but yeah, it seems that every Australian field or pitch at school is called an oval, basically because they do play a lot of cricket here, mate. I won't lie. But yeah, oval. There you go. Sorry.
Is it oval in shape?
No, it's not. It's rectangular.
Mine then. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's the ovals that we know as a cricket oval, but yeah, I think all the ovals at our school are rectangular in shape. So there you go. Controversial, that one.
Brilliant. Learn something new there. Yeah. So yeah, we're fighting with facilities and wanting to have these new activities that are engaging, enriching, and challenging for all learners, and that youth voice or student voice piece is really important, isn't it, to make sure that fits your context. Let's talk a little bit more about the curriculum design aspect then, because you're in this process of maybe trying to reshape or revisit and make amends to your current offer, and you've picked up on no show grow as this theme you want to kind of embed within your practice. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how you came to that and what it's starting to look like?
Yeah, and look, it's just worth noting that, I don't know, it's very cliche, but context is key for us. We looked at a lot of different sort of models for, I'm not going to say the word assessment, because yes, assessment is a part of it, but also I think we were quite keen for students to understand that no show grow, head, heart, hands, physical me, thinking me, social me, whatever it might be, is a way to access PE as well. So for example, it might be an officiating role. It might be head coach for your team's sport education frisbee unit. It can look and feel a lot of different ways for a lot of different students. We've got a very diverse range of students at our school, and as does any school. And I really want students to start to have the opportunity to shine in whatever way was right for them, I suppose. Historically, as I said, having come from our school being sort of a block of football, a block of basketball, whatever it might be. So yeah, the team and I sort of bounced a few ideas around, and we were looking at, it sounds silly really, but head, heart, hands. But we do have head, heart, hands as an award in our school, so we couldn't clash with that. But no show grow worked well. It's a nice, easy one for students, and it's starting to build some nice traction here. So we're about to launch it with parents as well, so they sort of understand it and can have that conversation. But we've already had informal conversations with the parent communities through parents' evenings and etc. And what I think they are liking as well is the fact that students, yes, they have the physical domain where they can show their skills, but also if they can demonstrate they have really good understandings of tactics or strategies, and they can step back and be a head coach, or if they're really struggling to maybe put their strategies into place in the game, they're still able to sort of be recognized for talking about the tactics or talking about marking or talking about how to get a really good aim to a partner or whatever it might be. And then grow is for me that probably where PE is just so special is that it, as we all know, it is the vehicle. Not the vehicle. Sorry. I suppose it is. It is the time where it really challenges students and puts them outside their comfort zone, like no other subject does. So, grow is where we can really look at social skills, look at resilience, look at responsibility, look at kindness, and it also does link in really well with our PYP learner profiles as well. So, yeah, it sort of sat quite well for us in our context, and we will start to assess students in either one or some of the components, depending on what the unit is and what lends itself nicely. But also, more importantly, it's the conversations that were happening in class. So, for example, today we were actually running a troop ball tournament for Year 6. It's the end of unit sort of celebration. So students had the opportunity to sort of demonstrate their no component, so they could referee a match. They could obviously show by playing within the team. And then the grow was, could they create some rules to make the game a bit more fair? So if someone in your team was struggling to catch, so one of the students introduced like a 2-drop rule for John, because he was really struggling to catch the ball. So John was allowed to drop the ball twice. And that student came up with that idea, and the teams discussed it, and it worked really well. So yeah, it's really interesting. And it's not going to work for every school, but certainly at the moment. And I think what our students were very much thinking, I'm not good at PE because I can't kick a ball, or I'm not the fastest, I'm not the strongest. Whereas actually this really gives them the opportunity to shine in a different way.
I like that. I got 2 sort of questions that popped in my head there. The first one is no-show grow now at the forefront of you and your team's planning? So when you've got a lesson, or a sequence of lessons, maybe units of work that you're planning, is no-show grow the thing that is kind of at the forefront of your decision making, as like, how are we planning this into the experience the learners are getting?
Yeah, I think so. It's almost like a backwards design, I suppose. I mean, again, another example, we've just finished, we're just about to finish an ultimate disc unit with Year 5, where we're sort of, the focus is emotional regulation, looking at social connections. So we knew that we wanted grow to really be the focus. We knew that they find Frisbee quite difficult, but as in all my lessons, they could choose from a different objects: tennis ball, beanbag, humongous ball, bib, whatever it might be. So Frisbee was an option, and Frisbee was sort of the focus. We would have little segments of Frisbee school in every lesson, but essentially grow was the component. So we're challenging them to work with different people in the class. We were challenging them to come up with different ways to make the game fair. So we were always going to have grow as the focus with that unit, because we knew it lent itself really nicely to that emotional regulation. Whereas, for example, we've got some upcoming units in sort of some modified cricket, T-ball activities, where the focus will probably be a bit more sort of know and show. So can you create new rules of scoring and sort of create your own game, essentially? So it's getting there. It's definitely, I would like to think it's at the forefront. So essentially the short answer is the long wind.
No, it's good to know, because I know you mentioned briefly that you didn't want to talk about assessment, and then I'm thinking, right, well, assessment for learning, and then that goes back to planning. So where does no-show go sort of fit in the picture? That kind of makes sense at this point in your sort of development of it.
I think it's also worth noting, because we're a PYP school, and this is the first time I've ever done this in my career, we don't provide a written sort of summative report like you normally would at the end of the academic year. So being a PYP school, St. Peter's like to do a feedback piece every term. So, for example, a student was receive sort of midway through a unit some sort of feedback piece from a teacher, and that could be anything. And then they've got the rest of the unit to sort of act upon that feedback piece, I suppose, if you will. And then they would get a data drop, some sort of summative number at the end of their term or end of semester, but there's sort of no written sort of generic Johnny had a great year in PE because. So it's giving us as PE teachers, you might argue it's a bit more time consuming, but it's also giving us the opportunity to think, okay, what if this unit is focused on grow? How can we create a feedback sort of pit stop opportunity to make sure we're sort of checking in with how the students are doing? So, for example, in one of the units, we were sort of looking at movement space, so sort of showing us, capabilities and sort of how do we find space? What does space look like? So they would do a peer analysis of their feet. They would watch a player on the opponent's team step out of the game, watch an opponent, and they would sort of draw their movement on a pitch on a piece of paper. And then he'd take a picture and you're absolutely right. I couldn't think of the terminology, heat map. They'd have a discussion with that person. So, hey, maybe you could, you didn't go over in this right-hand corner. Why was that? Oh, I was supporting this player, etc. Build up some really rich discussions and conversations. And then they would then upload that to their learning portfolio. And then that's me sort of, I would then chip in and add a comment as well. And then they've got that in their head for the next 4 weeks of the unit. So yeah, that's been an interesting learning curve as well. And that's probably helped us, coming back to your question about planning, that's probably helped us shape the sort of assessment and the planning as well.
Yeah. Brilliant. You mentioned earlier a little bit about stakeholders and particularly the parents. How important is that sort of communication with the parents, and what's the feedback been? Has it changed their perception of the subject, or?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. You never quite know with parent bodies, but I'd like to think I've got a very good relationship. I think because I do wear 3 hats at St. Peter's, I oversee co-curricular activities, which ranges from circus club to drama club to chess to all our different sports activities. And then we've got our competitive sport, which I organise and do all the admin for. Then obviously I lead HPE. So they do hear from me a lot. And I'd like to think they can see all the different opportunities we're creating for students. So, and as I said, in the sort of mentioning about diversity in the curriculum, we have diversity in the curriculum because we know that students can access basketball, football, whatever it might be, in the co-curricular or in the sporting programs. And that's probably been some good feedback from parents in that they can still access their activities that they like to chase, track and field, swimming, whatever it might be, in other areas of the school program. And as I said, through parent meetings and parent-teacher afternoons, etc., phone calls, emails, I'd like to think that we're on the right track. And also, just to add on, we talked about time for HPE. We also have something called Sport for Life, which again has been well received by parents. So this is almost extra physical activity time for students. So each term we run a 6-week block where students can choose what activity they do for 6 weeks. So they'll have 10 different activities, which will change based on, again, facilities, finances, coaches available, student funding, student voice as well. And then students will choose their top 3, and then I'll work out the big jigsaw puzzle of where these students go for the next 6 weeks. So they've also got that as well, which is another non-assessed, but just sort of social.
Okay.
Another opportunity to sort of have that physical activity time, but something that they've chosen to do as well. So it's a nice. When I think one of your guests, I forgot her name, did something similar for secondary within sort of a choice unit, but it's working really well. So, for example, there's a wellbeing walk around. We're quite lucky. We've got a big campus around all of our different ovals. So we've got wellbeing walk around the wellbeing walk. We've got ultimate frisbee unit. We've got baseball Queensland have come in. We've got some funding for them to deliver a 6-week baseball unit. We've got some cricket coaches. We've got some teachers who will lead table tennis. So there's some different activities happening on a Friday afternoon, which is quite nice as well.
So I guess that was kind of potentially similar to the old sort of like PE and games.
Oh, absolutely.
In schools in the UK of like a curricular PE lesson and a games lesson.
Yeah, spot on. Yeah, we've sort of just reimagined it in a sort of a PYP sense, I guess, for what our students need. Yeah.
Yeah, so the games, just the Sport for Life still has a real purpose that is linked to the PYP profile. And
yeah, and because it's student voice, although there are some very interesting student voices on the forum every term, which always made me chuckle. Esports is popping up even more and more these days. But badminton, I think we had 60% students wanted badminton. And unfortunately, because of facilities, we've only got one gym at St. Peter's while one is being built. So we just can't get in there. So we'll put on speedminton for the students next term, which is, if you're not sure what speedminton is, it's basically an outdoor badminton unit where there's no net and you've just got boxes on the floor. So we'll run that and say, hey, we listened, we tried, and we added, we've linked in with NRL, which is the National Rugby League. So we'll run a rugby league unit because that was really keen with some of our boys. So yeah, there's different things coming in. And as you said, it's creating a bit more meaning for some of the students, whilst for some of them, it's just an opportunity to vent and just move on a Friday afternoon.
And then the HB lessons allow you that opportunity to focus on the real curriculum, positive key message.
Yeah, pretty much, mate. Yeah. That's bang on.
I want to dive into the quickfire questions, if you don't mind. And the quickfire questions are normally not that quickfire, so we'll have them going up. Let's see. So I think I know kind of, and the listeners will probably get a kind of have an idea of what your response will be to the first one, but your non-negotiables then for positive experiences for all in physical education.
I think you and I have had this conversation before, actually, mate. I've on my desk above my computer, I've got the 4 words: choice, challenge, connection, and curiosity, and they form the part. If at least 2 of them have got to be in every PE lesson for me. It's always up there. It's a reminder for me. So, there's got to be some sort of choice. So, for example, in that Frisbee unit, there is Frisbees, yes, but there's tennis balls, there's balls, there's beanbags. There's always got to be some sort of choice for students. There's got to be challenge. So whether that's a just right activity at the beginning, doing whatever it might be, there's got to be opportunities for connection. And there's got to be some sort of little hook or some sort of activity or some sort of question or some sort of plenary that leaves them wanting more or wants them to find out a bit more or come back next week. Something that is going to keep them curious. Whether it's asking them what's the Guinness World Record Frisbee passes in a minute or whatever it might be, to have something, just have some sort of wondering. So yeah, my 4 C's would definitely be my non-negotiables.
Yeah, we have definitely talked about that before. And for me, I've reflected on this quite often, actually. I think connection for me is becoming the top C.
Yeah.
As in connection. Without connection, we struggle to make anything happen at all, in my opinion. So then once you've got the connection right, then you can allow them to be more curious, allow them to feel comfortable challenging themselves.
Yep.
And allow them to have that choice. But yeah, I love that. And, we're very similar from that perspective. If you had a mantra, or if you had to make up a mantra, what would your mantra be?
I really thought hard about this, mate, and I'll be honest with you, the only mantra that I've ever sort of lived by, and it's got nothing to do with teaching, is if you're going to miss the bus, you've got to miss it running. But what I will say, what I will say is I do try and pass that message on to the kids. So the kids in my classes, there's a lot of students who have very low resilience. So we do talk about really kind of bring on a growth mindset and try and give things a go. So whilst also having that sort of phrase of do no harm in the back of your head, but you're wanting students to have a go. So yeah, if you're going to miss the bus, miss it running. But if you can link that into teaching some way, then
back up, mate. Absolutely. That is one that you can embed in everything you do as a teacher, in terms of that positive messaging and what you want to role model and what you want kids to behave like. It's it's a great one. If you had, there's a controversial question, and if you could remove something from physical education, what would you remove?
I've got a few things here, Nathan. I'd probably say lights. Yeah, I'd probably say any sort of fitness testing without any sort of context. Just absolutely no. I would also say the concept of forcing like a big person sport onto little people. Like, I've seen it so many times where you're sort of saying, well, hey, 6-year-olds, let's all go and play like a massive game of cricket where everyone's standing around. And yeah, it's got to be, you've got to, if you're going to pick up something, modify the hell out of it so it's appropriate for the students in front of you. So there's so many times I've seen that, and it, even in our Australian primary sport, our year 5s play 9-a-side football, which is just absolutely bonkers. No one's getting anything from 9-a-side football for a 9-year-old, 10-year-old.
No.
So yeah. Anyway, I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying that. But yeah, it just pains me.
I think you're definitely allowed an opinion, and I think we're moving. In the UK,
I'm just saying the
pre-V3s at the youngest age, which is for me a real positive step forward. And more touches, more opportunities, more success, less pressure.
Yeah,
just makes sense. More time on the board,
more creativity as well. Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the Caroline Park, I went on a TGFU CPD training with, I think she was the head of P at Cumnor House in London. But one of the most interesting conversations I've had with her is that she completely stopped all her teams playing traditional 7v7 netball or 11v11 football, and she only hosted football festivals or netball festivals or hockey festivals where it was 3v3 or 4v4. And they did like a sort of study on it, and the amount of touches, creativity, it just went through the roof for their students, and it was just so interesting. But yeah, I'd love to do that here, but yeah, small steps.
Yeah, maybe add it to the list. Next question then, if you could give someone about to embark on a career in teaching PE a golden nugget of advice, what would you give them?
I'd say be a blackbird. Go and steal ideas. Go and watch others teach. Listen to podcasts. Steal things that you think would work well in your context. Adapt them. Go and watch teachers in different subjects. I think you'll learn things about behavior management. You'll learn things about teaching routines, classroom management styles. Go to other schools. Go to different TPD events. But yeah, just really be a blackbird. Pick things up. And just store them in your little PE book.
Yeah, I love that. Sometimes I feel, this is from my experience of working with newly qualified teachers or early career teachers and trainees, there's that they feel like they need to reinvent the wheel. They feel like they need to be original with everything, put a lot of pressure on themselves, where there's so much that you can learn from other people, from other ideas, and adapt to make your own. It's absolutely paramount. So it's definitely a sound piece of advice that I would agree with too. And the final question then, Ben, is if PE could be or should be one word for children, what would that one word be?
I think belonging. And the reason being, it comes back to being safe. It comes back to having a connection. You just talked about connection before content. It comes back to feeling like they've got a place to have some sort of success, whether that's in whatever medium it is in PE. So yeah, belonging. I think I'm going to go with that one.
Brilliant, genuine pleasure. I knew it was going to be a good one, and yeah, it's always great to talk to you, and I'm glad that we managed to get you on and have a conversation. And if nothing else, we've learned that ovals don't have to be oval in Australia.
Look, mate, if anyone learned anything from if that's the kind of golden nuggets I'm giving out, then there you go. So be it.
No, I'm winding you up, mate. It's been a really good conversation. Lots of I love listening to you talk and your philosophy about physical education. So thanks for coming on and sharing your thoughts.
No, absolute pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me on.